Well, I watched the television coverage live of the late Pope, Pope Francis, coming out onto the balcony, and noticed how the windows on either side of the balcony filled up with the faces of the cardinal electors. Camera panned along and showed them, and I thought, looking at these elderly men, shrewd, crafty, benign, I thought that must be what the ancient Roman Senate looked like. There's been an election here. I wonder how it went. And I was a political journalist before I became a novelist, and that started me on the whole process.
Were you surprised when you started researching about the politics of it, you know, the scheming, the infighting and so forth?
I was surprised, yes, and obviously in a way delighted. The conclave is supposed to be a purely spiritual exercise, and of course it is a profoundly spiritual moment. But underlying that, there is successive ballots where the winner has to reach a 2/3 majority. And that is politics. And there are factions in the church, broadly speaking, traditionalists and liberals, reformists. It quickly became apparent to me as I researched previous conclaves that this is a highly political process that is conducted behind closed doors.
How close to the truth do you think it is, both your book and the film? How close do you think it is to what is going to play out in the next 24, 48 hours?
Well, obviously, you know, I'm dramatizing something. I'm trying to make it entertaining. So I doubt whether the conclave will be as full of skullduggery as my novel and the film. But nevertheless, I did everything I could to make it accurate. I did a lot of research. I spoke to a cardinal been involved in a conclave. I visited all the locations. The Vatican very kindly let me see them. I read everything I could. And so the actual process of the novel and of the film are accurate. That is the way it goes. All the details of how the whole conclave works are set out by the Vatican and published. Anyone can read them. And it was just left to me as a novelist to create the characters and propel them forwards. But it's pretty closely based on truth. And in a way, given that the conclave is so secretive, it's probably about the only way you can really bring it alive is through fiction, because you'd be excommunicated if you were to give all the details of what happened behind the closed doors.
And it is being portrayed as the Catholic Church at a crossroads. Do you see it as a battle between the reformists continuing what Francis did and more conservative cardinals? Do you see that?
Well, that's certainly the way that it's portrayed in the media, and I think that must be the case. I mean, Francis really laid down a marker to the old guard. He began it when he refused to move out of the Casa Santa Marta, where the cardinals stay, the rather simple clinic-like hostel. He didn't move into the papal apartments. He refused the elaborate papal cars and wanted a little ordinary car to go around it. He used to dine in the cafeteria at nights with the nuns who ran the Casa Santa Marta. This put a lot of noses out of joint in the grander bureaucracy of the church. So, you know, we will now wait and see whether that kind of style of papacy goes on, or whether the next pope immediately moves back into the apostolic palace and gets back into the rather more grand lifestyle of a pope. That will be an early indication of the direction in which the new pope will take the church, I think.
And on the direction as regards doctrine, would you like to see a pope who pushed a little bit further on these key issues like the ordination of women, for instance?
Well, when I decided to write the novel, I realised the first thing I better do is give myself a crash course in the Gospels, which I hadn't really read since childhood. And I read all 4 Gospels quickly, almost like a novel. And I was overwhelmed by the experience, actually, because they're so radical. The concept of Christ's teaching about the rich and the poor, the revolutionary doctrine, the pacifism, the welcoming of strangers, the necessity to get rid of all worldly wealth. When I compared that to the reality of the Vatican, well, it's hard not to be struck by the contrast. And in particular, in the 21st century, can it really be the case that Christ did not intend half the world's population to play a full role in spreading his word? And that impelled the nature of the novel. So yes, and I speak here as a secular person, although I'm deeply sympathetic to the Catholic faith, I don't see how this cannot be the issue facing the Church over the next few years. The Jewish faith has female rabbis, the Anglicans have female bishops. Can it really be the case that the Roman Catholics will not allow the ordination of women? Maybe they won't, but I cannot help but believe it will be a big issue.
I was struck watching the film, and no doubt this is the same in your book, this is my confessional, which I haven't read yet, but in the end, a crucial role was played by the senior nun who came into that meeting and said, this is what happened, and that changed a lot. Was that deliberate, to give a woman who doesn't have that much power in the Catholic Church the power to do that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I sat down to write the novel and I realised I was writing about 110 elderly men. That's an odd thing to do as a novelist. Where are the women? Well, the women are there, but in a completely subservient role. They are serving the meals, cleaning the rooms, running the hostel where the cardinals live. And I felt I must give some voice to these women. And that character, Sister Agnes, who's in the novel and brilliantly played by Isabella Rossellini in the film, is the crucial character. And that's really, the heart of the novel. I've been, some people think, oh, you've got a sensationalist twist at the end, but I didn't put it in just to be, controversial. That's the essence of the book for me, is the playing out of this drama. I'm glad that I did it.
And just finally, so what you're saying means that this matters really, in a sense, beyond the Catholic Church. What happens in the next few days matters beyond the Catholic world and in the real world as well.
Yes, it does. I mean, if you think of many of the controversial issues facing the world, to do with the role of women, the homosexual rights, and how much family rights, assisted dying, these crucial political decisions are greatly affected by the Roman Catholic Church, which has 1.4 billion followers, as many followers as President Xi of China. The Church is immensely wealthy, powerful institution, reaches into all areas of society, whether you're Catholic or not. So this is a profoundly political moment for the world. And this process, behind the closed doors of the Sistine, with these 130 or so male cardinals, is a very political moment.
And do you have a name in mind? Do you have a cardinal you think you'd like to see become Pope, just finally?
Well, that really would be the kiss of death if I did have such a person. So, no, I don't. I watch it as a dispassionate outsider, and I'm sure the Church, which generally comes to a good conclusion, will do the same this time.
Yeah. All right. Robert, well, we'll know in a day, 2 days. What's the longest? 3 years, I think. But we'll know in due course. Robert, many thanks indeed.